Welcome to ScavTalk, an Escape from Tarkov podcast with a focus on the continuing development game, patch note analysis, theory crafting, and general gameplay discussions. My name is Church. I dabble in content creation, video editing, and live streaming.
And I'm GigaBeef, a Tarkov YouTuber helping players improve their gameplay, knowledge, and confidence.
And today we are joined by special guest ArxMessor. How you doing, Arx? Can I call you Arx?
I'm doing great. Yeah, Arx is great.
Cool.
It's way more convenient than ArxMessor, and I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Dude, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you taking this time out of your day to come on the show and talk Tarkov with us, man.
Anytime. I love Tarkov. This is I could just do this all day if I didn't have to work.
So to sort of preface how I got in touch with you and everybody that's listening, essentially I was just sort of innocently looking for an article that I read, I don't know, maybe like a couple months ago, because I was working on a project, a Tarkov economics video, and there was something in that article I wanted to reference. And long story short, I kept seeing this user pop up named ArxMessor when I was like, I typically like browse Reddit and, or when I browse Reddit, I should say, I sort by controversial because I tend to find sometimes there's some very interesting stuff going on in there. And yeah, I kept seeing this guy ArxMessor come up, and I would read his posts, and I thought they were very good posts in the sense that they weren't like these one-liners and like these little like ad hominems and straw mans. Like I thought he was like being very objective when he was kind of like just giving out his thoughts and whatnot. So anyways, I contacted him. I was like, hey, I see your post. I like your post, and and blah blah blah. And I'm hoping just on a whim that you can find this article for me. You've probably seen it, and he didn't get back to me. But later on, I messaged him, told him I found it and whatnot, and then he's like, yeah, I need to finish that article. I was like, wait, you're the one that's done that article? And it was just like, yeah, from there, I was just like, dude, I need to talk to you, man. We got to talk. So we've kind of been in touch, and he's sort of been the one that's inspired me to begin the hatchet running experiments, as they as they say.
So we know who to blame now, right?
Yeah,
we know who to blame.
exactly.
No, that's super interesting.
That's brutal. Now I'm going to be known as the guy who inspires hatchet running. Wonderful. Thanks, Church.
You're welcome. Anytime, man.
But yeah, it's interesting because like Church had said that he had something planned for a while. He didn't say exactly who it was, and didn't give me really any details. So after announcing it yesterday, I'm like, I'm super interested to just like to talk. And as soon as he said, oh yeah, it's Arx, and I went back and I looked up some of your stuff, and I was like, dude, like I've read some of these articles back when I very first started playing the game. Like this is super cool. So I don't know, unless Church, you have anything else you wanted particularly to talk about, then Arx, I just kind of wanted to get an idea from you of like how you got into Tarkov, like how you ended up writing articles and like a blog post in the first place, and like some of the stuff that you've gone through on that blog is like incredibly detailed, and I really appreciate that kind of like thought process, analytical thing. A lot of it's just kind of, here's the facts, and I'm not even going to put any opinion into it for the time being. It's just like, here's the facts, here's the outcome, here's what happens when you do XYZ within the game design. But yeah, just from the beginning, like how did you get into EFT in the first place? Kind of like, what's your background in games? Like, what do you like playing? Is EFT first FPS? That kind of thing. That'd be super interesting just to kind of like frame the discussion.
Sure, yeah. How I got into EFT, I guess I'll just go way back. Gaming since forever, since I was a kid. Got into RPGs, FPS. I played Counter-Strike from the time it was a Half-Life mod until it went to like, I don't know what they started calling it. It was like 1.6 or something.
Yeah.
CS:GO or something. CS
there was
or Counter-Strike.
Source.
Anyway, basically, yeah, Source. So that's like, I don't know, 10 years or something of Counter-Strike, which at the time was considered a hardcore shooter compared to everything else. Then I still gamed a little bit during university and all that. A little Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2. but I guess I was into League of Legends also. And eventually I started playing fewer and fewer games. I was getting a little more, I guess, unimpressed by the AAA titles coming out. They seem to be a lot of rehashed content, especially with the modern Call of Duty series. So I just kind of was like, well, whatever, I guess the industry's done for. I guess I'm a bit of a cynic, but anyway, so I was just doing League of Legends, the toxic solo queue grind, and that was basically it for my gaming. And eventually, I don't know how I heard of Escape from Tarkov, but I went to I eventually found the official website, and I was like, wait a minute, hardcore action RPG simulator hybrid. I just read through the description, and I was like, man, this sounds like something worth looking into compared to everything else. So I started researching the game, watched some streams, which I don't normally do. Watched Clean and Deadly Slob and Cotton, which talk about three different approaches to streaming Tarkov. But anyway, and I thought, wow, this is really cool game. I might actually spend money on this. So especially the hardcore appeal, which is just something I never thought would happen with a shooter. Again, basically based on the industry trends. So I was going to spend money, and then the question that I see a lot on the subreddit is, oh, which edition do I buy, right? And I was like, man, $150, like, let's see what's going on here. So I read into it, and I just kind of saw like, okay, it's a secure container, and I knew what the secure container was. It seemed like, okay, it seems like most of the value is coming from secure containers. Like that's why it seems like that's the most attractive thing here. But since I was looking for a hardcore gameplay, it kind of was just like, I don't think it's worth it just to have more storage in my stash or whatever. I'll just go for the hardcore thing. Plus, I looked into Battle State Games, and I was like, who are these guys? They're brand new developers. They have a kind of an odd history with, I think it's Contract Wars or some other games. And I was like, okay, it's a developer that I don't recognize. It seems to be pretty new. Their history of development seems to be pretty limited. I'm definitely not going to spend $150 on this. I'm going to go on the minimum and just see what I can get out of their, kind of, I don't know, pie in the sky feature list that they're promising. So I spent the $40, and that's how I got into Escape from Tarkov.
Awesome. That's cool. I guess it's interesting just how different people get into it, because we all ended up sort of taking like a different but sort of like similarly parallel, like meandering route through different games. Like I played Counter-Strike Source and then Call of Duty, and then I kind of came from like, I'd played DayZ for a decent amount, and then I kind of transitioned to Tarkov from PUBG, but with a big stint into Dota 2 in the middle. So there's kind of a lot of parallels and stuff, which is quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, I guess like from that point, so you start playing the game. I also bought the basic edition as well, because I didn't really know what to expect. And I think the thing that I read around when I first started was, oh, you can always upgrade, and it's just the difference between the two prices. And so I was like, okay, well, there's nothing to lose here. Like we'll just pay for this. You're like going through the sort of strange, dodgy Eastern European Russian payment process and thinking like, oh my god, what is this? Is this just a scam, or like, is this just a ruse? And then you start playing the game. So I guess like, how did you go then from I bought the game and I'm playing, with my alpha container and I'm running around, being a new player in this game, to writing in-depth blog articles on the game and the game structure and like how that works?
Okay, so from new player to blogger, EFT blogger, I guess. So I started playing EFT, looking for a hardcore experience, and I guess I'm a hardcore gamer. So to me, it only made sense, like before to buy the game to do all the research in the developers, read the official website, do a lot of research, and I guess that might be considered more hardcore than, you know, that approach.
I think so.
Seen
I
a
think
couple
it's a
people who
mindset
are
thing.
just like, oh yeah, I saw a stream and it looked cool, saw the fancy gun, so I bought it. Anyway, so that's just, I guess, part of my disposition is to be a little intense and about everything I do. So I was like, well, if I'm going to get into this, let's get into the subreddit. Let's see what third-party resources are available. So I got into the subreddit, and you start reading around, and I'm always up for discussion, debate, and conflict. It's just part of my nature, I guess, to be okay with having a discussion that everyone's not agreeing with. So
Yep.
I get typing on that and just kind of noticing trends with the subreddit. Along the way, as a new player, I basically fall into this habit of just hatchet running. I'm like a career hatchling. And this is back before the flea market. This is like 4 years ago. So it's before the flea market, before medical animations. It's, there's 4 maps available or something. And so I am hatchet running factory to build up resources as I'm, getting used to the content of the subreddit and looking around on there. And I eventually, it was like months of me hatchet running almost exclusively, right? So I'd like build up all this gear and then maybe play a few raids. And then one day I was just running factory, gunning for that office safe, which at the time was like, a gold mine. It hadn't been nerfed to the ground like it is now. Anyway, so I'm loading in, and then I just kind of wake up, I guess. I'm just like, wait, what am I doing? What have I been doing? Like, okay, I just got excited that this was a hardcore game, spent money on a game which I hadn't done in years, and then I'm doing this absolutely not hardcore cycle of suicide runs to make money.
Yeah.
And that was it was like what is it, like significant cognitive dissonance, like my I was thinking I'm playing this hardcore game, and then it's just this realization like, no, this is not it, and this is not why I bought the game. And I was just like, how did I get here? What happened? How did I get so far off that I'm avoiding all the risk? And so that kind of moment is what made me really step back and start thinking a lot more about what the game was, how it affected, like not it affected me, but how I responded to what the game was providing.
Yeah.
And so then I kind of started talking about on the subreddit, like, hatchet running it basically started on the subreddit in the least popular position of all time for Escape from Tarkov, and haven't deviated since, which is like, why is hatchet running a thing? Like, why is this possible? And anyone else feel like there's maybe something a little off here? And so that's kind of how I got into the subreddit, and I've been eating downvotes by the thousand since.
That's incredible. That's incredible. It's so funny actually that you ended up doing that and then kind of took a step back and like looked at what you were doing and saying like, this is super super strange. And it's funny just like how these systems, like how the various games, and not even not Tarkov, but just like everything in general, and even things in real life, right? It's like the way the rules are structured and the way that the system is designed causes people to act in the ways that they do, right? They look at the choices that they're given and they make a decision. Like I actually made a video very recently. The last video I put out was about like the state of Tarkov, and I wasn't, to be honest, I wasn't really that critical. Really, I was just kind of just putting some thoughts out there because I thought that it needed to. And there was a comment that I thought was super interesting from somebody who, they were replying to someone else who basically said like, oh, you can't say this stuff about the game. And someone was saying, oh, I think the point really is more about like the emergent player behavior out of the system design. And I was just like, exactly, that's exactly what I'm talking about, right? Like you can't, I think, because I did actually reference exit campers in my video, and only in passing. And there's a couple of people like caught on that, but it was kind of like, you should never really like hate the people that do the things right. It's like it's up to the game designers to change the game to make the people do the things that they want to do right. And that's exactly the same in real life in so many different scenarios as well, around rules, regulations, whatever it might be, within like so many different industries too, right? It's like people just do the things that they feel in their, usually in their best self-interest, whatever they think that might be, and choose from the various things. And Escape from Tarkov, it's like, well, if I do all these other things, then like I could gain, but I could also lose. But if I hatch everyone, then I don't lose anything. And so it's like an interesting emergent behavior, as that guy put it, which I thought was a great way of explaining it. In that, well, there's a game that's got inherent risk reward in it, and this one just X's all the risk out, and so it's just reward. And even though it might not be as much reward as something else, you also have like the sort of loss aversion kind of thing that people have. They don't like people hate losing more than they enjoy gaining the same quantity, and so people will like remove the risk of the downside if they can, in order to make sure that they're continuously progressing, even if it's at a slower rate. So it's it's fascinating that you kind of got to that stage. And like, I mean, I think I've seen your threads on Reddit, and I've seen some of the arguments you've ended up getting into. But I mean, people, I don't know, the Reddit's a real tough place sometimes. So I think it's, I don't know, if you're going to get flamed and have difficult conversation, it's probably the place. If you were going to go looking for trouble, that's probably the place where you'd start. So what inspired you then to actually like make the blog? Is it just to do with like, you're speaking to people on the Reddit all the time, and people, you get to say your paragraph and then they have their response, but it might just be, stupid or whatever. Whereas you can be just like, well, don't even talk to me, just go and read this, right? This is a whole like page of thoughts. And so, you read all of that and then come back to me and discuss what you have to say, because then it kind of explains your full position, because you don't always get that across. Is that kind of the deal? Because that's sort of how it seems to me from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah, essentially you hit the nail right on the head. Actually, the combination of the two things you've mentioned is, well, I guess first before that, I'll just say the phrase, to go back to what you're saying about emergent player behavior. I guess the phrase is what? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm with you there. Like, it's not on the players to quote quote behave. I don't know if that's an accurate way of describing it, but it's the developer's responsibility if there is a player behavior happening that they don't approve of or feel is appropriate for the game. It's not on the players to just not do that behavior. It's on the developers to either outright remove it or disincentivize it or do something to address it. So so don't hate the player, don't hate the hatchling, don't hate the exit camper, don't hate the whatever. Take it to BSG with respectful input. And so that player emergent behavior, combined with the idea of having a resource that I could just point people to and not have to repeat my arguments. So that's basically how I ended up with the blog, because as far as player emergent behavior, I guess the way Reddit works is, I didn't know at the time when I got on it. Full boomer here. Anyway, so when I got on to Reddit, I didn't realize that the posts decay in their ability to be on the front page based on time and upvotes, right? Popularity. So I would make these posts, and then first of all, they would get downvoted to 0 and they would never hit the front page, which it's like, I respect people like disagreeing. Like, that's not what I take issue with. I just think it's a bummer that majority rules decides what gets seen and not gets seen. I would like it to, I would have appreciated that even the most despised articles still are findable. You know what I mean? But it's just, I just found that, like, wow, this quality argument, high effort, well crafted, thought out, and not even mine, even other people's, and I'd be like, what? How did this got 0 upvotes and instantly died at 2 hours after it being posted, and then it's just relegated to being buried for all eternity, and no one ever sees it. So to me, that was a big problem with Reddit, and so the blog served as a way to take care of my own issue of not getting buried instantly. So I could make my own blog posts, and they're there forever, and unless whatever the service provider pulls a plug on it, it's going to be there. So that was that, and yeah. And in order to not have to repeat my arguments ad nauseum, which I actually kind of like doing anyway, but I just have the blog there available for anyone to reference. And a lot of the articles aren't finished because I'm, I don't do it full time. I have a job and family responsibilities and responsibilities outside of the family. So I don't really have too much, but enough time to finish all of the articles.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Reddit's super interesting. I mean, it's writing the blog as you have done, right? It's like it's a different thing to kind of like what I've been doing, but like there's definitely like a shared experience there, because I started with the Reddit. I'm also probably in the same camp as you in some ways, in that I'm not really a Redditor per se. I use Reddit in a very like non-Reddit platform kind of way. Like I know like lots of my friends all use Reddit. They're like on it continuously, scrolling through, finding new stuff. I get an interest, and this is why I was going to say before, actually, like, people who take things too seriously and get really, really down the rabbit hole with stuff, like you're amongst friends here. But I basically use Reddit for like very, very particular things. So like I get super invested in like one topic, and then I just visit that one subreddit for like years. And I may not visit any other ones, right? So like, I was on Dota 2 when I was playing that. And then for a while I was like it's just super, super like interested in Bitcoin. This is actually more like 4 years ago, like 5 years ago. Maybe even longer ago than that. Anyway, so I was like on that Reddit the whole time, and then I got bored of it and just like never looked back. And now it's just like the only one I go on is Escape from Tarkov, and it's like kind of the same thing. And so when I was like starting up trying to be a content creator in the first place, Reddit was kind of like the natural place to go, because like, well, I didn't have anything. I didn't have viewership, or no one on Twitch, no one on Twitter, nothing on YouTube to start the channel. So like, where'd you go? Okay, well, I'm going to go to Reddit, right? And it's like, it's like taming the angry dragon on Reddit, but it's the only place where you might actually get some visibility. And like, it is interesting that, as you say, certain things like people use the up and down vote buttons as, do I like this, yes or no, as opposed to, is this well thought out and worthy of discussion, which is really what they should be for. It's like, should this post be seen by other people and discussed more? Yes, as opposed to, I don't like the outcome this guy's come to, so down you go.
Right, exactly. Yep.
It's really tough. It's really tough. And that's like the interesting thing that I find about like Reddit's just a popularity contest. And one interesting thing about after doing YouTube for a while is that, firstly, there's not really that mentality of just, some people click dislike, but it's just, there's not that mentality of like, shifting the rankings of what videos get seen or not by pressing, one button or another button. There's more permanence on YouTube anyway. So if a video is good, it just continues to get shown. Whereas Reddit, as you say, something has got this time decay on it, and even if it's the best post in the world, after 1 week it's gone and something else is in its place, even if it's much lower quality, just because of the way it is, right? It's just like keeps people coming back, and I get why they do that. But it's interesting for me versus YouTube, where actually even if people like downvote your video on YouTube, actually often that, as long as it's not like outsized on the ratio, then that actually adds to it. So the only thing YouTube cares about is people ignoring your content. And if somebody comments something horrible and like dislikes your post, that's just like positive reaction. So somebody reacted to your post, this is a good thing, and it actually contributes to the algorithm, which is quite interesting. Whereas Reddit's opposite, right? If someone downvotes it, it goes to the bottom and gets put into the oblivion bucket. So yeah, Reddit is quite strange for that. But yeah, I mean it's fun, right? Because like you've got your blog there, and it's kind of similar, right? You've got a permanent record of what of your post, and you can always link people to it, and they can always go and find it. And also, I think it's nice to have been able to spend the time on your own terms, going researching stuff, putting things together properly, and then having, right, here is my actual argument, right? And it's like well thought out, and it's there forever. You don't have to think about it again. If you can even remind yourself, I guess, if you want to say, oh, what's the key point that I can tell to this guy. That's super interesting. I noticed that you haven't written anything on it for a little bit. I wondered, like, how much have you been playing, like, recently versus in the past? I mean, I guess you played like a ton in the past and have been playing a little bit less recently, I would imagine. I know we're kind of going through a bit of a slow spell in Tarkov anyway right now, because Tarkov's actually quite a secular game in a lot of ways, because of the wipe cycle and the way that content gets released and that kind of thing. So yeah, I was just intrigued to see how much you've been playing recently, and I guess we can get into some of the thoughts then about, like, the current state of play.
Sure. Yeah. I guess I'll just make one more comment about the subreddit. I guess I'm kind of a toxic person. So it actually was like home sweet home in the subreddit, because I just love to, talk smack and flame people and whatever. So, and that's something really actually over the last, I don't know, probably 6 years I've been trying to uh, get away from, because as much as there is a certain like dark pleasure to that sort of scrapping and talking mess to other people, I've just seen it for so many years that it doesn't ever contribute to anything. And there's actually someone else on the other side, that user, who, like, my good one line, zinger or whatever, it could actually be finding its way into that person's head, and maybe having a negative impact. And so it's kind of like my entertainment at that guy's expense. And so, I mean, you can go through my comments, and I still get into it today. You can go into my Reddit history and see all sorts of craziness there. But I'm trying to get away from it, because I just see that's just like not productive. It's like candy or something. It's like sweet goodness, but it rots your teeth, and it's terrible. It's more destructive than anything else. So yeah, that's the subreddit, and I just feel like the anonymity of the subreddit, it really contributes to just being able to fire off some low quality, trashy response and just snicker at, like, yeah, I did it, man. I really just got that guy or whatever. But anyway, so the blog, there's no one to flame but me, so it helps me to just kind of not go down into that road and just stay on topic. So, but anyway, I guess that's my way of saying to everyone I've ever flamed on the subreddit, it wasn't you, it's me. But let's see. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to remind me. I made a comment on the subreddit. We were gonna talk.
And then I was saying how much you have played recently
play rate
versus like in the past, that kind of thing.
Okay, yes. So I played EFT multiple raids a day. Basically, I'm like you. I tend to hyper focus on one thing at a time. So I just, for the last 3 years, I've been playing EFT, or 4 years, basically.
When did you start, actually? Like, when was your actual start date? Do you remember?
Is there a way to check my account date, maybe?
I'm not sure. Like,
it's been over 4 years. It's been like 4 years or more, at least. Because I have subreddit posts that are 3 years old or more, and I was playing EFT before that. And anyway, it's like 4 years, basically. And so I played nonstop. I mean, as much as my schedule allowed. Like I said, I have a full-time job and I have responsibilities, but whenever I had time to play, I played EFT. And after that hatchet run binge, right after that, and my kind of like come to Jesus moment or whatever, I basically vowed to never do a hatchet run or a throwaway run again. And I basically haven't, except for at repeated requests from people that I would play with regularly. Like, aside from that, I always take my best gear in, and I never play to like, I'll just roll the dice and see what happens. I always play for survival, and I always risk my best stuff. And I don't do any farming cheese or anything like that, because I went from basically ultra risk mitigation and profit, farming, to going for maximizing that stress and tension that comes with high risk.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, sorry for an aside. I played basically nonstop for 3.5 years, and just recently my play has dropped off to basically nothing since the last maybe 3 months or so.
Okay.
And that is basically the result of the Twitch drops events and their negative effects on server performance. And I would still be playing if it wasn't for how bad the servers have become. Because I don't know, people who don't or joined Escape from Tarkov after that first Twitch wipe, Twitch drop event, they don't know how good the servers were immediately preceding that event. Like, the servers were trash from the beginning, but at the just prior to the Twitch drops event, BSG had the servers at the best they've ever been since that time. So it was I was very hopeful. I was as happy as could be after years of struggling through really terrible, server issues. And then BSG announced this Twitch drop event, and I immediately anyway, I immediately went to the subreddit and was like the homeless guy with the sign that's like, the end of the world is coming. I was basically that guy on the subreddit, and I was saying, this is going to be a disaster. We should not switch from focusing on drawing in the few hardcore players there are. We should not switch from that to this mass appeal, mass player influx model, and it's going to kill the servers. And of course, I ate 10 million downvotes, and the most common response was, yeah, but think of the money. Like, with the money BSG is going to make from these events, they can just reinvest it into servers and upgrade and get, it'll help mitigate the, server issues or whatever. And with all this money, it'll help, the development progress, blah, blah, blah. And I was just saying, no, like, what's going to happen is the shift in philosophy from appealing to hardcore to appealing to the mass audience, plus the population boom's not going to be good. And here we are today, right? And so, yeah, network problems. I love the game to death, even with my years-long intense criticisms of some of the design aspects. Even with that and the cheaters, it's the network issues that finally just wore me down, and I just got tired of waiting so long to get into a game only to be disconnected or some server maintenance thing to pop up and boot me out of the raid. It just got to me eventually. But I love the game. I'd still be playing it otherwise.
Interesting. Yeah, it's funny because like some of the game's biggest critics are some of its biggest fans, right? Because the people who care the most and get really heated and frustrated and so angry, the reason why is because they care so much, right? If people didn't care as much, they'd just be like, oh, whatever, I'll go play COD or something. And you just wouldn't even see posts from these people, right? So, that's the thing about it. I find the server performance thing kind of strange because so many people have so many issues. And I don't know whether it's just like, I'm in a bit of a weird spot because like, I'm kind of in a similar situation in some ways, in that like I've got a lot of stuff going on outside, and so this is like it's very much part time for me doing this, and I absolutely love it, and would love to do way more, and like hopefully in like the distant future, then it will be possible or whatever. But like for now, like I don't play a great deal outside of like I do like one stream a week, and then I'm making videos a lot of the rest of the spare time that I have, and then I play like another couple of raids maybe in the week as well. But I feel like the people who are playing all the time, and especially people who are playing like super close combat stuff, feel the desync and and the server issues like that much more intensely in some ways. And like I see it, but it doesn't bother me as much as other people. And but the thing is, like I've seen some like truly horrendous things on especially on the Reddit, and like you see, especially when it's like two streamers and you see both sides and that kind of thing. And I just feel like that kind of stuff doesn't happen as much to me, as I see it happening to other people, maybe I just don't notice, and maybe it's partly my playstyle. I'm like generally a bit of a slower player, and I like playing outside a lot. I think maybe that comes from PUBG. I don't actually play inside as much. Like I've started to like force myself to do that. Like Church will tell you, like the base of the last like 2 months, I've just been trying to turn myself into much more of an aggressive player and that kind of thing. Because before I was very tactical outside, trying to spot people before they spot me, and like the game works fairly well at long range in some ways. And it's kind of like the around, when you're around a wall and like, or like there's doorways in the way, and that's kind of then when you start seeing grenades bouncing back through windows, you get shot when you go back behind the wall and then you die anyway, and like all of that kind of stuff, right? And it's mostly like indoor kind of things, which typically I've always avoided. So I don't know whether it's that. Also, I have heard things about the servers in Europe. I'm not sure actually where you're based, but like I know the servers in Europe have historically supposedly been better. I mean, this is just anecdotal, but I mean they're based in Eastern Europe, right? And so you imagine that the Western Europe and Eastern European servers potentially could be better for that reason. I don't know. It's possible. And then also, like, I have really, really good internet, so that does get rid of some other problems that if there was issues on a person's PC that wouldn't appear in any other game because the game is created in such a way to mitigate errors regarding latency or packet loss or whatever that might be. If those elements aren't in EFT, you might get more issues if you have even just ordinary internet, because the game's not as well optimized for network and that kind of thing. And I bought the best possible internet line that I could, because I was like, I'm in a really good area as well for it. And I was like, this is my thing, and I'm gonna pay for it, and that's that. So definitely no regrets there. So I don't know. I think there's like maybe a few factors to why I don't see it as much. So I always find it interesting when I'm speaking to people who it's genuinely game breaking for them, right? Like you've stopped playing because of it. Like it's crazy to me that there can be such differences in either opinion or actual experience of what happens in raid. I think it's strange because it's like so many things in Tarkov, right? Like some people have an absolute kick-ass PC and they get like 60 frames. Some people have a PC that's actually worse and they get 90 frames, right? I mean, it's like it depends on the exact hardware that you have, exactly how your computer's set up. Like there's so many variables, and they're not a big studio and it's just not optimized for everything. Making a PC game is hard. Everyone has different hardware and it's complicated. So it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult. And it's hard for me to decipher like which parts of it are just perception and which parts of it are actual like hardware and that kind of reality. I mean, Church, do you see the issues as much? Because you're playing from the US, right? So
yeah, but I mean,
do you
it's
see like a ton of problems?
The problem with this discussion is just that there's so many variables involved. Like, for example, we live in a very good area and we have Google Fiber. But not that really matters, because based off my understanding from Battle Nonsense is like even if I'm connecting to a server in like Virginia, there along the path there could be a node where that's causing packet loss. I mean, and then it's like then you got to factor the netcode. Like I strictly when I try to play around hardcover, just because peakers advantage and desync. But I mean, it's just like sort of like I had a similar experience to ArxMessor when I first played the game, because I played in like early or late January. And I didn't even know about Twitch drops, but this was like just when the game was really popular, right? When it first came on my radar. And I specifically remember one of my issues was that I had auto select on for servers. But I specifically remember loading to a raid, it taking forever. And then when I finally got in, I was like, the ping was just all over the place, dude. And I was just like taking damage randomly. It was an awful experience. But I think that's kind of the thing it's just everyone's experience is so varied, It's really without some more scientific approach, and that's probably more on BSG side, giving, releasing data or releasing more tools for us to narrow things down. Yeah, that's just my kind of take on it. It's just a little too, my experience is going to be so much different. From your experience, I would imagine.
Man. It's so tough.
Yeah, and sorry if I could just jump in real quick.
Yes.
Just to clarify that, my issues with the network problems if you could keep in mind that I've been experiencing that for 4 years up to this point. So it's not like, oh man, the ping's bad today. It's like it's years and years and years of bumping up against network issues, and I have a fairly high tolerance for that sort of thing. Like I didn't buy EFT and then was surprised by its poor performance, right? Like I knew, you know, beta, when I see the word beta, I'm a boomer, right? So I know beta means it's going to be trash, right? And no, it's not. Maybe I shouldn't say trash. It's just going to have performance issues. That's just what happens during betas. And so, so basically, I just set my mind like it's just part of the game. But that mentality only lasts so long. Even it just wore me down over 4 years. So it's not like I'm not the guy who's like, oh man, it lagged, dude. Screw this game. This game sucks. BSG, fix your junk. It's like I pretty much endured it for 4 years, and I played the quest so many times now. I've been through the game loop so many times, that there isn't enough there to keep me through the network performance issues. And it's like I love the game, but the lack of substantive change to the gameplay loop, plus the persistent and apparently not improving network performance. It's like the combination of all those things.
It's kind
I
of
played
what
it
broke
so
the
long.
straw on the camel's
Yeah,
back.
it just
Yeah.
all added up. So I mean, it's a good run. It's been a good run. I love the game. I will come back as soon as the subreddit starts. I start getting word of like, hey, servers have been better or whatever like that. Man, I'm back in it.
Interesting.
So on that note, I kind of want to, if we can change topics a bit, because I want to be mindful of our time here. You mentioned something very early in your intro, and you said, "Hey, I'm a hardcore player, and I like playing hardcore games." But I thought it was interesting that when you start talking about EFT, you basically said, "Yeah, I was hatchet running. I was like a career hatchet runner," which I think some people would say, like, if you're a hardcore player, why are you hatchet running? So maybe could you sort of like define what you think as, hardcore means in that context of I'm a hardcore player, and also what hardcore means in the context of Tarkov?
Sure. Wow. Okay. Defining hardcore player. Oh, thanks, Church.
You're welcome.
Yeah. No. I mean, I would just in defining hardcore gamer, hardcore player, hardcore EFTer, I would start by going back to the generic definition of hardcore.
Okay.
And that's, I mean, if you look it up, it's usually something like the most intensely involved, the most committed, the most loyal, um, the most extreme. You'll see words like that. You'll see in the definitions, and so I kind of boil it down to like commitment, intensity. Um, yeah, basically kind of like a commitment and intensity thing. So a hardcore gamer is going to be a gamer who is the most committed to gaming and intense about gaming, right? So where a casual gamer wouldn't be very committed to gaming and wouldn't be very intense while they're gaming. So a hardcore gamer is like, say for example, I had 1 hour to play. A hardcore gamer, or 1 hour of available free time in a day, a hardcore gamer would be one who's committed and intense about gaming and would spend that whole hour gaming. A casual gamer would be not committed or intense and might game or watch YouTube videos or do something other than gaming, right? So then if you can apply that to a hardcore EFT player, right? So a hardcore EFT player would be one who's committed to and intense about EFT, whereas a casual EFT player isn't committed to or intense, particularly committed to or intense about EFT, So a hardcore EFT player, during that gaming hour, he's going to play EFT the whole time. And a casual EFT player might play EFT, might play Candy Crush, whatever, right? And so that's kind of how I define hardcore. It's, I guess one way to say it is a hardcore gamer or player isn't someone who has a lot of time to play, but is someone who gives their whole effort to playing with the time they have, right? So you can be a hardcore gamer who only gets to play 10 minutes, but in those 10 minutes, you're playing EFT and you're giving everything to it, right? Or you could be a casual player who plays 18 hours a day, but goes from game to game to game to game and doesn't care about anything. So that's kind of my approach to hardcore.
I think that makes sense.
And what about from an EFT perspective, right? Because I know it's sort of like that's sort of part of the marketing or the description of the game. It's a hardcore tactical shooter. I want to say I might be quoting that wrong.
Oh, now I'm triggered. You triggered me. Get that. You better get that game description right. It's no. It's yeah, it's pretty long. But okay. So you're saying like what is a hardcore game?
No.
Or like aspects of a hardcore game?
I guess. Well, let me roll it back because I don't know if you actually answered my initial question. Kind of the thing I was proposing is you said you were a hardcore gamer, right? And you sort of defined what that was, and then I mentioned how you started hatchet running, right? And the thing I sort of like try to point out there is like I think some people would look at it and say, "Oh, if you're a hardcore gamer and you claim to be a hardcore gamer, why are you doing this hardcore or this hatchet running business, right?" So could you kind of like explain that for?
Sure. So yeah. Okay. So I am a hardcore gamer.
Mhm.
So with my free time that I have, I game. I'm a hardcore EFT player in that when I have free time, I play EFT. Now, so I was intensely playing EFT.
Yeah.
And in a committed way.
Yeah.
But the in-game gameplay loop that I was participating in, I eventually realized that gameplay loop was actually not hardcore.
And why is that? Because I can see how, from a hardcore player perspective, you are committed and dedicated to doing this mechanic, but then, like you said, you sort of have a cognitive dissonance with it. How? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, basically, the way it works out is for me, there's this thing on the subreddit everywhere. You'll see, well, everyone has their own definition of hardcore, right? Okay,
Right.
relativism. I get it. If you want to say that, fine. But I would just point out that an essentially universal characteristic of hardcore games, if you look at any list of hardcore games, none of those games reward players when they fail. I just let that sit in. So I would suggest that a universal or nearly universal characteristic of a hardcore game is that they do not reward players who fail. In other words, they punish players for failure and don't
Failure
reward
in this case being death in EFT.
death in EFT. I mean, yeah. And so my first article was this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is secure containers.
Right.
It's not about hatchet runners.
Look at that banner. This is back from my edgy.
Can you scroll up just a little bit?
Right. So I've got the
perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
Right. So got this the deploying into raid, plus you've got this container full of loot, plus you die equals hardcore, right? And you've got the little baby with the air quotes hardcore with the full kit.
I love this. I'm
So
sorry.
that was kind of, that's me. That was my response. That baby is actually a lighter skin version of me. That's how I felt, was like, I'm actually this super soft, container dependent, punishment avoiding player who gets this good gear, and I'm waving my hardcore flag and I'm so proud, but actually I'm not participating in hardcore gameplay. And so this first article, I actually did it in a bullet point. It's all bullet points instead of just, I don't know what's the word, prose, or just written out in paragraphs. Anyway, and so I guess the TLDR is, if a game rewards you for failing, that's far extreme from hardcore. Like, for example, if you could indulge me a second, if there's like a spectrum, right? Over here's casual, over here's hardcore, and there's this big spectrum in between, and there's kind of maybe this neutral position. I don't know. So everything over here, there has to be some degree of punishment, and that's punish, right? Some degree, right? And over here, it's not going to punish you a lot, but you'll get some punishment. And over here is like the game automatically kills you IRL, right? That's like the ultimate extreme of
die in the
hardcore.
game, you die for real.
Yeah. And that's like the people on the subreddit who are like, oh, what do you want the game to like uninstall? So you just want, like, when you die you have to buy a fresh copy? Like that is like over here, right? The extreme. Then you have like over here you have like permadeath of a character. Over here you have some loss of, I don't know, maybe XP or progress, right? And then over here, maybe like in the original Super Mario, you go from your big Mario to your small Mario, but you can still keep going. And then, but this is all a range of hardcore. Whenever you fail, you're getting punished to some degree or another, either an extreme or a little punishment, right? But then when you get into casual gaming, all of this involves either a lack of punishment or a punishment that's, not worth anything. Like, for example, it would be like the therapist post-raid healing is like right here, or like right here, where it charges you like 5,000 rubles or something, but it's basically nothing.
Yeah.
So the thing with secure containers, and what my issue was, is you can run in and die, and instead of getting a punishment anywhere in this section, you get rewarded with like 300K. Right? So instead of any kind of punishment for failure, the secure container actually causes the game to go ultra casual and literally reward you for failing to extract into the tune of 300K plus, or progressing your actual PMC through the game. Like, you can fail to the end game. I don't know if that strikes a chord with you, but basically, as a hatchling, you can fail your way through quests. You can fail your way to a Bitcoin farm. You can fail your way into mass wealth, right? So that's what I realized. Like, hey, this is not anywhere even close to hardcore gameplay. Like, we're in like even Candy Crush punishes you when you fail. You know what I mean? But Escape from Tarkov, for claiming to be a hardcore game, actually rewards you when you fail to do the basic gameplay loop. So based on that kind of idea, I would say Escape from Tarkov is either not hardcore at all, in that ultimately you can suicide your way to end game, or you could say it's optionally hardcore. Like, if you don't use a secure container, you're in this realm, right? You'll either get punished a little bit, or I guess you're not getting killed. You'll lose some gear and stuff. You're in here, right? If you don't use secure container. But when you start using secure container, you can go all the way to the extreme of ultra casual. So that's kind of my take on on the issue. And to me, this is the issue in Escape from Tarkov, in my opinion. Like, if you're going to call it a hardcore game, it needs to be that, right? And so when you have an option to suicide your way to victory, you're just, you're not living up to that title. And that's the, to me, that's the fundamental mistake, developer mistake that BSG has made. And their failure to rectify that has led to all sorts of issues with the game. And basically the entire game revolves around the fact that the secure container exists.
Yeah, a lot
I
of
don't think there's another issue that's anywhere close to the impact that secure containers have.
It seems they've been dealing with a bunch of the symptoms and not really the core issue. But I want to say also that after I did my hatchet running experiments, it sort of like, opened my eyes a bit that I've basically been hatchet running this whole entire time I've been playing EFT. Because what do, right? You spawn in, you go to the most valuable loot, and you put it in your container. And I mean, sure, found in raid, if you die with it, it's not as valuable as it was when it doesn't have or when it has the check mark. But assuming I can still use it, or there may still be some value to it. I mean, regardless, it's like, I mean, that's how one of my friends plays the game. Is like, he literally, instead of hatchet running, he just brings in a diaper rig, a penis helmet, and an RPK with like a drum mag, and then a bunch of mags in his container, and then he literally just runs interchange, shows graphic cards with butt, let up his butt, and he has like millions upon millions, and it's like, it doesn't matter. And he's like, I was like, Kevin, why don't you do? I think I said this in one of the previous podcasts. Kevin, why don't you hatchet run? He's like, well, I can basically do the same thing but with a gun. So it's like, he's not really risking anything. He's just like, he's shooting a guy if he comes across a guy. Like, it's not really a big deal because half his kits paid for it, and the majority of his kits paid for it. It's actually really interesting how this whole time I like, it really did open my eyes how much I've been hatchet running with the gun essentially.
And so let me just jump in real quick. Sorry,
Yes.
Giga. That's why the title of that article that I wrote, I don't know, years ago, says it's not about the hatchet. Right? So many people are like, oh, they try to say like, oh no, only hatchlings participate in this. No, like you said, the fundamental or the underlying principle is, it is possible using secure containers to make a net gain out of a raid, even if you risk gear. Right? So it's like this phantom risk, right? You go in and you say, well, I spent 150K on this run. And it's like, yeah, but you've got 400K worth of stuff in your secure container from that raid. So you died and you're like, well, I did get punished. And it's like, yeah, you got punished and came out plus 200K. So you didn't really get punished. You earned 200K. Right? And then if that gear is insured, some of it comes back to you. So you're not even getting the full punishment on the gear loss. And the stuff you had in your secure container pays for more than that. So you have deceived yourself into thinking you were punished. And you were not. You made a net gain. And the mechanic that is responsible for that is the ability to retain items of value through death.
Yes, that is the fundamental issue. Now, like, so there's been a couple of people like speaking in chat as well, saying, finding raid gone on death is kind of fixing it. And I have said in chat as well, it is better than it was in that sense. They have done something to make it a little bit less profitable than it used to be, but it is still an issue. I actually thought and didn't fully understand the ramifications of what the finding raid thing was going to do. And I didn't like it for kind of other reasons because of the way it was implemented. But I thought when it was put through, I was like, okay, well, I think the effect on the game is going to be okay. But I didn't realize that hatchets and similar would actually still be able to do what they were going to do because of things like getting graphics cards for the Bitcoin farm and all this kind of stuff. Like I hadn't quite thought it through to its logical conclusion and just assumed it was all to do with the flea market. And me and Church have actually talked on this podcast about other things that hatchet running allows you to do with the hideout, for example, which when Church was doing his experiments, things like effectively laundering items via the hideout to create find and raid items to then sell on the flea, which is like, it's all these other things, right? And it all just comes back to what we were talking about previously, right? Which is about emergent behavior, right? And it's like, defining hardcore about what's a hardcore player versus a hardcore game, which might be different, right? And you can be a hardcore player and be min-maxing stuff. And if within that game there are non-hardcore mechanics for you to kind of exploit, I suppose, right? So in the game, you're kind of like, well, I'll just do what's, if I'm a min-max type person, then I'm just going to go and do that. Because it kind of makes the most sense and makes the most money. So it's interesting because, again, as Church was saying, right, they've tackled some of the symptoms, and I think they have tackled some of the root causes, but not in quite the right way to make it go away completely. Because I thought Finding Raid was going to fix it because of the whole selling stuff on the flea thing, and be like, okay, well, who would care? Now you can't do quests properly. Some of them you can, but you can't do a lot of the quests where you need a Finding Raid item. You now can't sell the stuff on the flea market. You can only search the trader, and it's at a very, very minimal amount. It's still free, but it's a lot less than it used to be. And so I thought it was going to go away, but it didn't, because of various things, like we said, laundering stuff through the flea market, using things for either just for yourself, right? You find a stack of ammo and you're just going to use it, or you can like what did I say? Launder it through the flea market, use it for yourself. Or just sell it to the traders. Some stuff's just like actually still fairly valuable. And I think like I did kind of like cheat myself out of the answer in some ways, because I've skim read. I couldn't actually remember the conclusion that you came to, and I did actually skim read through that article to like the end result, and it was quite funny because I think I've come to exactly the same conclusion. And it's interesting because you wrote these articles ages ago, and we've talked about this. And I think I said it. Did I even talk about it last week or something? I can't remember. Where I was like, I don't think you should be able to put stuff in the container from the raids. I just don't think you should. And this, I think, would fix everything. And when I read through your article again, I was just like, that's the one. Because I think that was the conclusion you came to, right? That like you shouldn't be able to put stuff from raids in your container. It should be a case to allow you to keep some things on death so that you don't lose everything when you die. It's kind of necessary for things like keys, unless you make a special slot for them, because otherwise it's just like not really very fun in that way. Like to lose those permanent keys just kind of sucks. But there's so many things, right? Like we were talking again, like the last week or the week before, about the people who cycle 60 round mags out into their secure container, right? Especially once you've got the kappa case, because you've got so many slots, right? You can easily have some meds and the things you need, and 3 60-round mags full of M995 in your secure container, and you just cycle them round through, one out into the rig and that one straight back into the gun, and you only ever have 60 rounds of 995 out in the open, and the rest of it just all comes back with you to the stash when you die. And all of this kind of thing, just it's not. I don't think it's good for the game. It's I think it's bad, and it's like I just don't see how. Because people always complain about this stuff. Say, oh, well, if you nerf the secure container, then like you're making it so much harder for new players and all this kind of stuff. And like, yeah, you will make it harder in some ways because people won't be able to make as much money. But I feel that a lot of the time these issues come from people who are either career hatchet runners, or they're like the level 40 or 50 hatchet runners who like really know what they're doing and really know how to like min max the game to profit the most from it. Right? If you're under level 10, you're probably not going to be hatchet unless you've actually gone and like seen it elsewhere and gone, oh well, this is a really easy way to do it, and seen somebody else doing it. If you're just a new player that's just turned up in the game and getting the regular Tarkov experience, which I appreciate it's not everybody, but you're going to be scared out of your mind bringing some gear in. Like you won't necessarily think to do it first. So for me, it seems to be more of a problem for people who are already experienced and recognize it for the profit making opportunity that it is. And I don't think it really hampers the new player experience that much, because like it makes some of the quests harder because you can't, but they've already got rid of the finding raid thing on death, so that doesn't help you. And certain items, like if you need them for the hideout, then it sucks to lose them when you die. But like that's Tarkov, right? But you still get to keep your meds, your painkillers, whatever else, the stacks of ammo, that kind of thing. Things you brought into raid, you still get to keep those. And that's a kind of non-hardcore crutch, but I'm okay with that because I think it's enough to help. I mean, it helps everybody, I suppose, but I think it's enough that new players, I just don't feel like I was reliant upon secure containers to make money when I first started playing. And it's funny because like I'm actually not a massive content consumer, so to speak. So I never used to watch a huge amount of Twitch. I quite like exploring these games for myself on my own and coming up with stuff. And once I have like a solid base, then I go out and look for other things, because I find that process of discovery rewarding in and of itself just for me. And so I just don't think that, like, for the way that I played the game, that I would have found the game any harder if that had been a restriction on me to begin with. And everyone's got a different experience, and your mileage may vary, but I just don't think it's as big of a problem for new players as is often brought up in the various arguments. And the one other thing that I'd bring up about it is that it's quite interesting is how BSG's take on secure containers is quite complicated, because it's kind of how they've sold the different varieties of their game. Right? No one cares about the two in the middle, but standard account version versus EOD, that's like, other than the stash thing now in with the hideout, the EOD container versus the alpha container is really like the defining feature of why somebody pays so much more for the higher version. And so they have a complicated relationship with this, because it's part of their revenue in a lot of ways. And it was already, to be fair on them, it was already quite bold to get rid of the finding raid on death thing, because it did actually nerf the secure container quite considerably, but not far enough to get the game to where I think it should be, if you know what I mean. Because they already did do that. And when they did it in the first place, again, lots of other people didn't think it fully all the way through, like me, and said, well, this is actually a really clever call from them to be able to basically get rid of the secure container without removing it, because people would just cry all over the Reddit and everywhere if they got rid of secure containers completely and said, well, everyone has to go back to alpha, because that was kind of one of the defining features of the game. But to remove finding raid, like, really nerfs the use of it a lot and makes it much less useful. And so I think, I don't know, BSG have kind of a tough thing managing like the community's expectation around it as well. And so they've already put in one restriction in the past, and so to put on another restriction but allow people to keep the slots that they have, I actually don't think it's that much more of a step now that we're already kind of halfway there. That's kind of where I'm on it.
Yeah. Could I just jump in and touch on some of the things that you were saying? First, let me just go to what did you were talking about?
I should probably say less.
Okay. No. That wasn't it. You were talking about how secure containers should. You were kind of like, I'm not sure how hardcore it is to be able to preserve items in your secure container. And let me just visualize that for you, because it helps me also. And let me see if this. Tell me if you think this is reasonable analysis here. So if we go back to our chart, right, you've got right, you've got this spectrum. Boom. Here's neutral, where you're not getting punished or rewarded. Here's casual, where you're getting rewarded. You can get rewarded even when you fail. And hardcore is on the far end, right? Okay, so hardcore, casual, neutral. Okay, so I would propose that the secure container protecting gear loss is actually neutral. So, for example, if you take in, I'm sorry, it's just on the hardcore side of neutral. For example, you take in 100K of gear, or let's just say this. I'm sorry, let me simplify it. You've got your kit, and then you have your secure container, and it's got its own little storage, right?
Right.
Okay, so alpha baby right here. So when you die in Escape from Tarkov, let's just assume you didn't put any items from raid in your secure container. So you have like a key and, I don't know, meds and some bullets and I don't know, some rubles so you can escape from the car with using the car. Okay, so that's what you brought in. And you've got this kit. Well, when you die, Escape from Tarkov punishes you by you lose your kit. But you do keep everything in here, so you're not punished like that. But my point is, you are ultimately getting punished.
Yes.
Right? You're not on this casual side where you're getting rewarded. So I would argue that the secure container functioning to protect items still allows you to remain on this hardcore spectrum where you're getting punished, right? You still get punished, right? You just don't lose 100% of your gear loss.
You're basically
right?
just diminishing the amount of
Right.
punishment, but
It is a loss mitigation, but
yes.
it's not reward, and there's a huge difference, right? You can go from losing everything over
Mhm.
here, your whole account, or you can go losing 1 ruble, and you're
Mhm.
still losing something, right? And now it may be a meaningless loss, but you're not profiting.
Yes,
So
that's the
so
thing.
I would say because you're not profiting, even though you're mitigating loss, you're still losing something, you're still being punished, it's still hardcore
Yeah.
to some degree.
Yeah.
Now, it like I said, it might not be this, like, it kills you in real life hardcore,
Right.
but but it's still on this side, it's not neutral, right? You've lost something. So, ultimately, I think allowing secure containers to function to protect items doesn't compromise the hardcore nature of
And
EFT.
just for can
That's
you
my take on it.
and just for fun, can you sort of, like, show on this spectrum the how EFT currently could work? A scenario could play out where you could be on the, casual side where you are getting rewarded for failure?
Oh, sure, yeah,
I mean, you can keep what you got, like
yeah, so, basically, it would be this secure container,
right.
right? The same scenario,
Mhm.
except, uh, this is now, a red key card,
Mhm.
right? A violet key card,
Mhm.
boom, and now this violet key card is worth, I don't know, what's it worth these days?
5
Over
mil, I
300K,
don't
I'm
know.
just gonna guess.
I
I don't even look on the flea market anymore. Okay, so 5 mil. Sorry. Jeez Louise. Okay. Go hardcore game, baby. Um, so this one slot is 5 mil, right?
Mhm.
I Can you even spend 5 million on a kit?
No, but I mean, I guess you could, but it doesn't really matter. You're still losing your kit.
Right, right. But so say you lose your kit, boom,
Yeah.
but you're walking out with 5 million. So upon dying,
Mhm.
eh, I have died. I did not do the thing that the game is about, right? Which is extracting. I didn't
Right.
do the
You failed the
baseline thing.
objective. Yeah.
Yeah, I have failed, and I receive 5 million rubles. That that is over here, fellas.
Mhm.
That's past Candy Crush. Candy Crush doesn't even give you stuff when you fail. Like, here is Candy Crush. It's right here. Candy Crush. Right? You still have to restart your level, and it sucks, right? Escape from Tarkov, when you can make this much progress from one slot, you're talking right here. Let's not joke ourselves, right?
Yeah. Eh,
You're getting I could anyway, it's casual. It's ultra casual. It's not kind of close to neutral. It's not like reasonable in the middle. I mean, 5 million for a single item that you can spam out runs at no risk.
yeah.
Right? You can just farm and farm and farm, and you just chance on this boom, 5 million rubles. It
Because
they're yeah.
yeah, I just want to quickly tie it in what Giga was saying about, how people sometimes will say, well, you're going to hurt the new players. I think you have to like eventually you have to get this sort of knowledge that, this mechanic exists and that it has room for abuse. That way, like you said, you can essentially eliminate the risk involved of spending money on a kit because, regardless if you die, you always lose the kit. But because how the container works currently, like you said, you could just spam out runs and get abuse the system. And then, yeah, I think, and then from what I've saw in my own experiments is that hatchet running benefits those that have progressed further in the game through like leveling the hideout, unlocking traders, and things that nature. So, yeah, I wanted to like reemphasize that point, but
Yeah,
that's good.
you said regarding hurting new players, right?
Hmm.
Um, I think it's critically important to take care of new players, especially in a hardcore game. Like, let's just like straight up, let's just establish that for anyone who says I don't care about new players or that, you know, I'm just some elitist gatekeeper, can't give you any more time than that. I care about new players. I want EFT to succeed. I want EFT to have maximum player base possible. I want the devs to get rich off of it. I want it to be a great game. I want everyone. I want it to be like a Dark Souls, which is a hardcore game that breaks out into mainstream, right? Which is just super rare. That's what I want.
Can I?
Like, I'm not. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I want to interrupt. And I watched a video recently about hardcore and gatekeeping, and they used a really good analogy. Say you have a group of friends and you're playing D&D, right? Where you like role play and act it out. And then let's say you want to invite this new guy to the group, right? And he's cool, you know, he's like a friend of a friend. And so he comes in, but he starts like doing all this metagaming and he's basically being a prick, right? And you're like, hey man, can you chill on that stuff? Like we want to keep this experience how it's sort of like gatekeeping the experience, not really the game. Like we want to include people, but we want to gatekeep the experience, so to speak, of the hardcore. And I think that's really the important part here. And that was sort of like eye opening to me. Um, that yeah, we don't want to like say, oh, you're a new player, you know, or this game's too hardcore for you, you can't play it. No, it's like we want you to come play, but we want to keep the experience of the hardcore in the game.
Yeah, and to kind of bounce off what Giga has said, we want new players, and like say that guy is operating within the rules of the game, but it's something we don't like, quote, quote, quote.
Mhm.
At that point, I would say, hey, this guy's actually legit. It's not what the dev like D&D has intended gameplay, and it's not what we're all used to. But this guy's actually playing by the rules, so this guy can keep doing that all he wants.
Yeah.
We need to go to the D&D rule set and have that changed officially.
Yeah, I see what you're
If
saying.
that, you know what I'm
Within
saying?
yeah,
So
yeah, I get
yeah,
it. Within the analogy.
I so that's what I'm saying. Like hatchlings, I don't go after hatchlings. I don't
Right.
go after extract hamster. You know, it's like they're playing within the game. We need to fix the game to be according to how the devs intend it to be, which is hardcore in this case.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
in your analogy, Church, it's like, you know, if you're playing with like a group of friends or whatever, and like you say, well, look, here's the official rules, but like we're going to play by a different subset, right? And you don't really have that choice in Tarkov.
Yeah.
Well, I say you don't have that choice in Tarkov. You actually do, right? Because if you want to play publicly with people, then sure, you just have to play by the official rule set. And that's the same as if you went to go and join a D&D group out in the random world and you just joined as a random player and you'd be like, well, we're going to play by that rule set. But if you want a different experience, you could potentially enter a tournament in Tarkov, right? Whereas, oh, you have to go here and you can only join this one map and you have to take this loadout and no
Mhm.
level 6 armor. And people abide by the rules because they're part of a community, and it's not necessarily in the
Yeah.
game, but it's part of the experience that they want to join. So I think it's quite a good analogy. There's like the one thing that I wanted to actually touch on, which is the main argument against this, and it's really interesting because I don't know whether like there's so many factors for this particular reasoning as to why this might be happening, and I don't think it's just this, but people always say, right, the more that you restrict the secure container, the faster people want to leave the raids, and that then detracts from the experience because if people find anything good, they're incentivized to leave immediately and go. And so that means that raids are more dead, and that ever since finding raid even came into play, raids are more dead because now it's much, much, much more valuable extracting, and it makes the game more boring. And if you got rid of the secure container, being able to put anything in there at all, people would again just leave immediately, and then the PvP would die, and the game would become much more dull. That seems to be like the strongest argument that I see against these changes in general, which includes the change that already came in and happened already about finding raid changes. And I'm interested to see what you think about it because I don't really know. I kind of see the argument for it, but I think there are also other reasons as to why that might be the case. I don't think it's just that on its own.
Sure. Um, I mean, Okay, EFT has a lot going on. It has a lot of different ways a player has a lot of different activities for players. You can go in and PvE, you can just loot and explore the maps if you want. You can play the market. There's just pure economics sort of thing, and then there's PvP, right? And you can PvP as like a role player who likes behaving as if you are a real PMC with the real kit, with real tactics, right? The more role-playing heavy side, and then there's PvP where you're just like pre-stimming, jumping off things, clipping through what you can clip through, min-maxing, and you know what I'm saying. There's also there's a spectrum of PvP. Okay. Fundamentally though, if you don't have a hardcore gameplay experience baseline, Escape from Tarkov is failing. Period. Because it is advertising itself as a hardcore game. Okay, so the basis for my approach to all these questions is, what is Escape from Tarkov? What is it trying to accomplish? Right. So, Escape from Tarkov.
Here it goes.
Yeah, right there. Hardcore, realistic. We won't even get into realistic. We won't go there.
Thank you.
But hardcore, right? It's just right there. It's the first sentence of the official Escape from Tarkov webpage. There is no there's nothing muddy here, right? It's literally the first descriptor of what Escape from Tarkov is, right? Escape from Tarkov is a hardcore action RPG simulator. So it goes back to my situation where with secure containers functioning the way it is, Escape from Tarkov is not hardcore. Right? So you have critically failed the first and foremost description of what the game is, right? So in that sense, I'm maybe PvP suffers, but we have a shattered game identity right now.
Yeah.
And people are worried about their PvP. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it kind of goes back to new player experience. Yeah, new players are going to suffer, but does anyone care that the game is suffering? The entire identity of how this game is marketed is fundamentally undermined right now, right? This game's like, oh yeah, we're trying to make this hardcore gameplay, but you can suicide your way to the end, right? So, I care about new players. I also care about the game identity. Yes, I care about PvP, but I also care about the game identity. Like, let's go bad analogy time here, right? It would be like a basketball player saying like, we should, if it, like say that while they're starting basketball, they're like, hey, this is the like the size of the hoop that we have now, right? They're trying to determine the size of the hoop, and the devs are like, or the people creating basketball are saying, yeah, let's make it the size it is now, right? And then some players are like, yeah, but if we extend the size of the hoop, we can make more baskets, which is so cool and fun. If we just make the hoop like 17 feet wide, then we can do this really cool, fun thing, which is make baskets. And it's like, yes, but you don't have much of a game left, right? Now you have, for the sake of one particular aspect of the game that you enjoy, you have compromised the ultimate value of the game. Like, who's going to want to, there's going to be no professional league of that with a 17-foot wide.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be an actual quality game. Although people would be like, yeah, but I'm having fun getting the ball through the hoop. That's kind of the argument from PvP, right? They're like, yeah, it's going to hurt PvP. It's like, it might. I'm not going to say it's not. It might, but the game has an identity. It's trying to deliver a specific gameplay experience, and secure containers are moving us so far away from that we should not prioritize PvP over the container. Like, it is more important for a hardcore game to actually deliver hardcore gameplay than for us to have more PvP in Escape from Tarkov.
I'm actually very pleased with that answer. I'm actually really, really pleased that you said it in that way in particular as well, because like I said in the video that I made last week, I said that Tarkov is not designed around PvP. And I said it's very important. It's a very important element of the game. But the game is not designed around PvP. And I had multiple comments, people being just like, it's disingenuous to say that. You can't say the game's not designed around PvP. What else is in the game? I'm like, I see where people are coming from, right? Because it's kind of like, without the game being completed, it's probably one of the only end game activities you have left once you've done everything else.
It's the main activity.
But I'm exactly with you in that the game mechanics should not be balanced around PvP first, and then, as you say, hardcore nature second. And I'm completely with you on restricting the secure container, even at the detriment of the player base and myself, to deliver the experience that we're looking for, right? And it's like, yes, people might want to leave earlier, but why? Because they're scared, right? There's fear, and then there's loss, and then there's risk reward, and it's just like all the things that make the game good is the reason why you would want to do that in the first place, right? Like, you're going to be a lot more scared leaving the raid, knowing that it's actually just going to disappear completely. Like, it's just like one step further than what we have now. It's like, before, you left the raid or died, didn't matter. You have, let's not even say a GPU, let's say a LEDX or something, which, you can use it for barters, but most people are just going to sell them. Now it's like, oh, well, you can still sell it to therapists, but it's for like, a quarter of the price. But then you go to this model, it's just like, well, if you die, you ain't getting it at all. And I think there was one comment in chat that basically saying like, oh, it would be a real bummer if then I couldn't keep some of the stuff in the secure container because like I run some good kits and then I die with it. And it's just like, I know that sucks, right? But I don't know. I just feel like that's just the way it should be. And I don't know. I just feel that that's the way it should be. I don't think it should be like a mitigating factor to have it in a secure container so that if you die, then you get something back or whatever. I don't think that should be part. I just don't think it should be part of the game personally. I just don't. And if it pushes people away, then so be it. But I think it might also, push people away the other way around, right? For introducing the collateral damage that it does around people hatcheting, people doing like minimum possible viable runs, that kind of thing, right? And then you're running around interchange and you're playing against 3 people who've got just a pistol and 2 guys who are running an RPK and a penis helmet, and it's like, is that fun PvP? Also, no. So I think that there's more to it than just like people don't want to. People just like want to be able to keep their stuff or whatever. I don't know. There's like it's always so difficult thinking these things to their logical conclusion. It's very hard to know all the effects that these things are going to have, right? It's very difficult. I think there's things on both sides.
Yeah. So let me show you. Okay. Man, what's our time? We have 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
About 30 minutes, I think. We were going to do an extended one for this one.
Okay. Boy, I mean, there's so much here. I would just real quick about the first topic that you were talking about is you said like, I think the game should be this way personally, right? Okay. Like, I'm going to just push back on that. In that I think a more appropriate approach is to just give the devs the respect that it's their game, right? And so they are the ones who say, like, Escape from Tarkov is this thing, and this is how it should be played, right? And so from that angle, I wouldn't say like in that sense, it doesn't matter what you or I want.
Yeah,
kind of, but don't let's not go crazy here. From the sense that like ultimately it's Nikita's game. Nikita gets to set what we're intended to experience, what the game's about, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I start from, because in my opinion, our job as gamers is not to strong arm a game that's in development to fit our preferences, right? It's our job to just go play the game that's advertising the features we want, not to try to force features into the game that we want. Does that make sense? Like, if you're a gamer and you're like, man, I like shooting things all the time, and Escape from Tarkov has advertised that there's a lot more to the game than just shooting things all the time, I think it's inappropriate and selfish to then say, yeah, but I like this, therefore I think the game should go this way, right? And I'm not like, I hope you wouldn't take this like as personally directed to you. I'm speaking to myself also. So I have a list of preferences I have, but ultimately I try to only push for things that the devs themselves have advertised. So, for example, here's a quote. Here's a quote from Nikita on secure containers. Can you guys see what I'm highlighting here?
Yes.
I don't have it very big on my screen, I have to say. But we should read it anyway for the audio listeners.
Yes.
Church, do you have it big on yours?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Okay, so
it says what? So, one second.
So
let
for
me just pull up
starters, what's the context here? This is a podcast, I assume?
this is a podcast. Nikita was featured on a Pastilli podcast.
Okay.
And these are word for word. I transcribed them as accurately as I could of what he said.
Okay, so he said. So what was the first bit? So was there a question or something before this very first one, or is it just his comment? So he says, "We thought about it. For me personally, I think every item must be disallowed from being put into the secure container during the raid. Like only pull out, not put in. For me, this is a perfect concept of EFT."
Were you aware that Nikita has said that?
I was not aware that he had said this. I am completely vindicated.
You can click on that timestamp. It will take you to that part of the video. And so, everyone, please go get the context before and after. I don't have an agenda here. Feel free to do. I posted the link to the original podcast. Go watch it for yourself.
And this is Nikita, right? This is Nikita's quotes.
Nikita. These are all Nikita's quotes.
Okay, so next one.
For me personally, this is Nikita. I think that every item must be disallowed from being put into secure containers during the raid, like only pull out, not put in. For me, this is the perfect concept of EFT.
Dude, this is crazy.
Okay, but look, this is his balancing word. He's not, for as much as people go after him, there's some wisdom here, because his next thing he says, true EFT players, like dedicated players and streamers that play the game every day, are kind of happy with these changes, referring to what he just said about changing secure containers, because it will lead to the actual true Tarkov experience. Let us use this expression, true Tarkov experience. And I personally think that this is a great idea to have it like this. We actually had it in the pre-wipe event, but it is too extreme for the people who are not so experienced and dedicated as true Tarkov players.
Interesting.
So my suggesting that secure containers are an issue, and now granted, this is from, I don't know, a year ago, but I have quotes from Nikita going back to the very first dev podcast he did with Clean, saying that he didn't ever anticipate hatchlings being a thing. But my point here is like, it's not like, oh, I think it would be just this grand idea to change secure containers. This is perfectly in line with what the developers want. And that's what I'm saying. This is more than just like ArxMessor's personal crusade. Like, I have closely watched the development of this game to the point where I'm transcribing Nikita's words. Just so that people can't say, oh, this is you just having like some personal agenda to get what you want from the game. Like, no, I respect Nikita's vision, and I try not to suggest things that contradict his vision or are just out of line with what the game is trying to be, because I mean, it's like, what do we become if we just are all doing whatever the heck we want, right? Like, no, I just want every game to be exactly what I want, and screw the devs, screw the player base, screw everything. Like, I just want what I want. I like shooting stuff, therefore keep the secure containers. To me, that's just like anyway, maybe I'm getting too worked up. It seems selfish to approach game development that way. But anyway, you can read the quotes for yourself. It goes on.
Can you post that
Basically,
link in the Discord chat? Sorry to interrupt you.
the Discord chat. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I'll post it in stream, and then I'll have it for audio listeners. I'll have it in the description of this audio recording, so you can pull it up for yourselves if you
and
like.
those times, you can listen to those times for people who don't want to read. I guess that's kind of a new generation thing. The podcast audio's there. You can listen to it. But anyway, Nikita goes on in these. Let me see if the next one. Okay, yeah, we introduced limitations. Let me see. Okay, so this next paragraph is him talking about FIR tag. So this is before the FIR tag came out, and this is him alluding to it in that third paragraph. But and then the little small one is him talking about potential other changes to the container or ways to address it, like the division. But it's this next paragraph at 3945 that's super important, I think. He says, and okay, so for the people who have made it this far, and who still feel like, yeah, but what about the new players? Like, look, Nikita understands that, and I understand that, and this is the proof. Like, listen to what he says here. He says, the thing is, the initial problem of hatchlings is that they are playing as not intended. So for people who say hatchlings are legit, no, right here, straight up says they're playing not as intended. Okay, but let's just keep going. They just rush into some places, get a LEDX or a key or something valuable like hoses and screw nuts, and they just die and disconnect. This is not cool at all. And this is one kind of problem that I want to fix in the game. Okay, but here is the shift where he acknowledges that we got to take care of new players. So he says, as you can see, it can't just be fixed with some easy thing. We can't just super emphasis on just. We can't just disallow people to use secure containers. It will require something interesting and suitable for everyone. The idea to have special extractions, et cetera, et cetera. Then he says all these things are discussable. And then he says the hatchling problem. You have to understand these people are struggling. The streamers are making millions, but they're angry about these struggling players. But these players can't play like the streamers. They need to get some kind of money to play the game. So Nikita's not an idiot, and I agree, right? He knows that he's got this vision of a quote true Tarkov. So which implies right now we're playing false Tarkov experience. By the way, just going to point that out. If Nikita believes that the true Tarkov experience is not being allowed to put items in your secure container, and we have the opposite, then we are participating in the false Tarkov experience. I think it's worth pointing out. But anyway, he's saying that they need a way to make money, and I agree, right? So to all the people who are worried about it hurting new players, yeah, Nikita's worried about it too. I'm worried about it too. But you have to realize that Nikita said we can't just make a change to the secure containers,
Yeah.
Which means he's open to a combination or multiple step thing, right? He's not saying I will never change secure containers. He's just saying I won't only do that because it will cause problems.
Yeah, I mean that makes total sense, right?
I think it does.
Makes total sense. And I think it sounds like a good solution, but we'll just have to see if they actually put it in place or not. I think that's the thing.
Well, let me just bring this.
All right, you got to zoom in. Whatever you're gonna.
I'll zoom in.
Okay.
So people who think like, oh, you're proposing changing secure containers, you're not thinking down the road, right? You're just gatekeeping, you're just blah blah. It's like, no, dude, I have a chart with like I don't know what's this called, like a flow chart of secondary and tertiary issues that are going to result from secure container changing, and also how to address them. So what I want, my ultimate goal, is for the true Tarkov experience to be brought into play, and also that new players are taken care of. I do not want a situation where secure containers are changed, somehow miraculously we force that through, and then new players are just totally screwed. I think that would be a huge mistake. I think it would be a massive loss to EFT, and it's unnecessary. I think we can get both. I think we can get the true Tarkov experience and new players taken care of.
And I just
Yeah,
wanted to
go
say
for it.
quickly, I don't want it to be a thing of us forcing this, but more so us, changing the conversation of, hey, this, if Tarkov is indeed a hardcore game, then this mechanic essentially invalidates that, right? So we want to sort of bring that to the front of the conversation, because I believe personally that this is just a fundamental issue. Like, we can't even talk about fixing the economy until we talk about fixing the
Exactly.
like, what's the point of even talking about desync and, dying if we're still bypassing progression, like death is invalid, death doesn't matter, right? So this is, anyways.
Right. How do you balance an economy when there is a subset of players who progress and get wealthy when they die? How do you come to a balanced state when some portion of the player base is punished for an activity and the other is massively rewarded? It's so much more difficult when there's two sets of rules like that for the risk reward structure of the game. If you simplify the reward structure to, if you survive, you profit, then you can balance the game around how easy is it to survive? How much are you rewarded? And it's such a more simple place to be. But anyway, I don't know. We don't have to really spend time on this chart, but it's available somewhere. Who knows? You can contact me, or I can email it out. But basically, this chart just goes through, like, if you change secure containers, there's going to be fallout issues, and I have suggestions for how to deal with each issue. Like, for example, if you change secure containers, imagine how grindy the quests are going to be. It would be absurd, right? The quests that allow for non-FIR items, I believe there are still some.
It's a few.
Right. So for people who are like, yeah, but the quest would suck, my response is, yes, you're right. If the only thing we did was change secure containers, the quest would suck even more. But we don't have to just change secure containers. We can fix the quests. And then we would have the secure container change, which helps the game. And also the quests won't suck, right? Like, you can do those two things, right? And then they're like, yeah, but what about keys? Like, what if I find this super ultra rare key that's worth 10 bazillion rubles and then I just die to some hacker? That would suck. And it's like, yes, 100%. That would suck. But we can change secure containers and also change the spawn rate of keys so that they're no longer ultra rare. So then it doesn't suck so much, right? If it's right, like, I wish we could get past this, like, one thing at a time. Like, we can do multiple things at a time. If your issue is keys would be obscenely rare, then just change the spawn rate of the keys and let's move on down the road. Like, we can't let such a simple obstacle stop us from making such a huge fix, right? So if the quests are a problem, fix the quest. If the keys are a problem and rare items, make them less rare. Problem solved. If extract campers are a problem, make more extracts, make different extracts, make manhole extracts in the middle of the map, right? Um, um, you see what I'm getting? Like, the principle is, like, if there is an issue, like, we've got to do better than, yeah, bro, but keys. It's like, yes, the keys, yes, obviously the keys it would be insane. And then we just fix that and keep going. And there'll be a list of things, secondary effects that come out of changing secure containers that will hurt new players and even existing players, but we can fix those too. Like, we have the enough minds in our community to be able to fix rare keys. Like, I believe that's not a crushing issue we can't get past,
Yeah, it 100% makes sense. I totally get it. I think it's a good way. So we'll see what they want to do. I mean, I don't know, Church, if you don't mind. I mean, the last 15 minutes, I kind of wanted to just like tack off a little bit onto something slightly different that's like very, very related. Unless you had anything burning or pressing that you wanted to talk about.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
I wanted to just shift very slightly across into a different type of hardcore, because obviously we know that Tarkov is supposed to be a hardcore game, but then when you're talking relative, right? If you're talking about Tarkov as a thing, right, then you can basically talk about like different types of how hardcore is Tarkov, and it's very topical right now because we're towards the end of the wipe and people are running out of stuff to do. That a lot of people are doing hardcore runs, which is a fascinating topic, and it's actually quite good for content creators in a lot of ways because it creates tension where there wasn't tension before. It creates excitement, this kind of thing. And there was kind of one catalyst that made me want to speak about this in particular, which was, I actually have it up here, which was Pesterly's tweets that he made this week, which he wrote: 1 week event of 1,000 players on private hardcore server, hardcore rule set hard coded into the game, prize pool for the highest level, and first people to Kappa. Thoughts?
What's your reaction? I got a strong facial reaction from you, Arx. What's going on?
I gotta not jump right into that.
It's a proper bait. Well, like, so okay. So, well, do you want to, do you want me? Because I can talk about my thoughts about it just quickly if you want to gather some thoughts together.
Go ahead. I have tons of thoughts, but I need to filter 95% of them so they're not the toxic dark side me. So go ahead, please.
Okay. So I mean, I've kind of been talking about hardcore on and off, and about how it could be quite fun across the past probably, I don't know, month or so. And I've tried a hardcore run once at the end of last wipe, and I thought it was quite entertaining because I've always had a bit of an issue with the traders in general and the way that progression functions. And the way that I see the game actually is probably more hardcore than it is now, because there's lots of issues like end game barters for armor and stuff like that, and the plentifulness of things that are supposed to be super rare, but actually everyone's running them every raid. And we've talked previously about delinking rubles from an actual gear from the players, because otherwise it just means that if you have enough money, you can just run meta loadouts every single raid.
Right.
And I've brought up the controversial thing. I think if I put this on Reddit, I'd probably just be exploded with a nuclear bomb. But I think that some of the top barters should be fine in raid only, because basically it would force the scarcity on them. And even if you're a top player with 3 billion, trillion, quadzillion rubles, you wouldn't actually be able to buy a slick, because you'd have to go and find a vase in raid, and you'd have to actually have that vase in your hand and have extracted with it to give it to Ragman to actually get that piece of armor, which would create goals for players, because then they decide on which things they want to go for. Because do I want a slick, or do I want something like do I want to re-pyre or whatever? So then I have to go and find a vase in this particular location, or I have to go and find whatever in that particular location. So I think that like more hardcore stuff would be quite good. I think Pesterly's specific tweet that he's written, I'm not sure about the prize pool thing, the highest level, like the quick like grind to Kappa as a tournament, but I am interested for a test of hardcore now, because one thing that I've kind of been proposing for a while, and I get lots of pushback on it, is about potentially having two characters, one which is like a hardcore character, one which is a non-hardcore character, because doing a hardcore run kind of sucks when you're playing against people who are not playing hardcore. And I think it would only be the most fun it can be if you're and as most exciting and tense and exhilarating experience if you're only playing against other people who are also playing with that particular rule set. So I'm actually super interested to see it from just like a testing perspective. And I actually wrote a comment back on that tweet saying, you're going to have to do this, like if you want it to be useful for the game development, you're going to have to run this like 5 times, like at least. You're going to put a rule set in and play it, see what happens. Some stuff's going to be crazy broken. Some stuff people are never going to find. You're going to have to tweak it. You're going to have to do it again and again and again and again until you find and get some useful data out to say, is this good for the game? Is it bad for the game? Is it terrible? Do people hate it? Like, is this going to completely suck? Like, will it allow experienced players to extract themselves out of the regular player base and make the game easier for people who are not playing against mega chads all the time? There's positives and as well, and I think it'd be super interesting. So I'm excited to see it come to the forefront. Don't think it's necessarily that great to have it as a tournament, but I still think it's nice that the discussion is going that direction. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I think there are significant pros and cons to this announcement. The general idea of exposing and hyping, quote, quote, the idea of actually playing the game in a hardcore way. I think that's great, like the general concept. But if embedded in the presentation is the idea that you can use secure containers to profit from failure, then ultimately you're not actually proposing hardcore gameplay. You're proposing more difficult and grindy gameplay. I do not believe that grind equals hardcore. I do not believe that at all. Grind is its own thing. You know, grind can be related to hardcore in that there could be difficulty increase involved, but usually grind is the idea with grind is just like a repeated task that doesn't have much variety or anything. You're just grinding away at it, right? Chipping away slowly at this massive thing, which is usually a time sink. I don't think that that's hardcore necessarily. So if the rule set is, if what Pastilia is suggesting is that now progression takes way more time because of these strict rules on what you can use and buy, and instead of hitting level 40 in time X, now it takes 3 times X, and blah 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 blah, but all the while you can still profit when you fail, then he isn't actually promoting hardcore gameplay, he's promoting grindy gameplay. And I think that would just be an abysmal failure, and would further send, especially if people like it, it would further obfuscate the core issue and cause the masses of the player base to further delude themselves into thinking that they're playing a hardcore game when they're playing a grindy game. I don't know if that makes sense.
I'm
100%.
confused because you keep saying, reward for failure, or is that, am I quoting that right?
Yeah. So, for example, if he has all these rule sets like, oh, you can't buy from traders, you can only use whatever, you can't use your scav, you can't use a flea market,
Oh,
blah,
I
blah, blah,
see. Okay.
but then also allows secure containers to be used in the
Right.
anti-hard way they are now, then at a fundamental level, he's still promoting casual anti-hardcore gameplay.
Is
It's
that
just
the case, though?
grind.
Well,
Giga?
Chad's saying here, so Chad is saying, I don't actually know, because it really depends on the rule set, right? This is the key point.
Yes,
So Chad's saying,
it's all
Pestily
about the
hardcore,
rules.
this is Hey Dudson saying, Pestily hardcore rules at the moment is only use keys in the container, no fleet, no barters from traders. It is a more pure way of playing the game. And if that is the case, only keys in the secure container, that is okay, I think.
Yeah, it depends on like the strict interpretation of can only put keys. Like, do you mean from stash and literally no items in raid go in? If that's the case, then we're good to go. I don't care what other rules he puts in. Like, if we are actually playing to where there is no possible way you can be rewarded to any degree when you die, then we are now baseline hardcore. And I fully or mostly support this endeavor.
Yeah, I think this is just a compromise because, like you said, one of the things that comes up is like,
tired of compromise. 5 years of
well,
compromise.
it's because we can't actually modify the game rules, right? We can only put self-imposing restrictions, right? It's not like I can increase the spawn of keys, like you're saying. So this is just sort of a compromise, but it is very close. I mean, that's a very close version of what I think we've talked about of the game being hardcore, right? Because when you do these like massive
Except for
gameplay changes, there is these it affects everything, right? So like keys would be something they would probably have to address, right? Yeah, I mean, anyways,
yeah, but in this case, keys aren't that relevant to obtaining kappa because keys aren't necessarily super quest relevant. Like the super rare ones, at least the last time I checked, the ultra rare keys are not quest related. They are like high value loot room related. And so I think am I off?
That's mostly right.
I
Yeah,
don't
so
know.
changing secure container isn't necessarily going to make obtaining quest keys particularly impossible or something
There
like
might,
that. But I agree with what you're saying. Like, yeah. But my issue is the setting the big cash out as Kappa quest to me is like fundamentally the worst messaging you could send to the player base, because like Kappa container represents a bigger version of the root problem of the game.
yeah, I get what you're
You
saying.
know,
Though.
it's like the deluxe version, as far ultra casual as you could get, is putting that box on your character. And so it's like,
But it is sort
I
of
mean,
like the end
I
game
think
of
that's the point,
Tarkov.
right?
I
That's
get
the
it.
point more than
And I get
anything
it.
else. Yeah.
The problem is
Because
like
right now we don't
the
really
messaging
have.
is muddied, and
Right.
people who aren't paying attention might not pick up that the point is it's the most highest level quest to unlock. They might pick up on Kappa OP, which that's all I'm saying.
I get what
it's
you're
like,
saying. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the problem when you get into private servers and rule sets like that and tournaments is that is how Half-Life multiplayer died. That is how Counter-Strike was born.
Yeah.
Custom rules. And what happened was Half-Life had its thing. Modders got into it, made their own custom things, custom servers. It instantly, well, okay, it didn't instantly, but it eventually eclipsed Half-Life and went on to be its own thing. Now, it went on to be a great thing.
Yeah, 100%.
But the point is the custom rules killed the thing that birthed it. Right.
Yeah.
So we could be facing a situation where the custom rules kill EFT as we know it, and it could be for the worse or the better. It's like a coin flipping
100%.
situation. As soon as you open up private servers and custom rules, you have opened yourself up to that sort of risk.
Anyway. I mean, it's private servers that will be run by BSG, so at least it's like in the hands of the devs still. In that sense. So
and then the pressure
better.
from the player base for private servers mounts and mounts and mounts and mounts and mounts. And then people like he who shall not be named, I literally can't say his name or I'll get banned from the subreddit. People like him who like to mess with the game could end up anyway. I don't. I hope. Basically, the cynic in me is saying no good, bro. But I will just. I mean, I just have to take the position. If it's going to happen, I hope for the best. You know, I hope for the best.
I think it'll be interesting, and we'll see what happens with it. Yeah, I mean, I've been accused of trying to split the game before with my suggestion of having it like this, but I don't know. I think either which way, like, there's interesting conclusions that can be made from actually people doing this kind of test. And I've always said that BSG should be more radical with their tests. They should try more stuff, and just go with things. And they've got these, the test servers as well. And I don't know how radical they've been with that. And I think they really do need to just like amp it up and start changing things and try things. And this is why I'm excited about this, because it shows that they're open to doing events like this. And even though it might be a private server where they just run it for 1 week and then just see what happens, it's kind of a test bed. And I think that's cool. I like the idea, and I like the general philosophy of trying this kind of stuff to see what would happen, because you don't know what the ramifications of all this stuff will be until you do it. It's very hard to know.
Yeah.
Right.
I think ultimately it's a good thing, because the tournament scene in Tarkov is kind of like the where a lot of the eyes go. So if it's I see you shaking your head. So if more eyes,
sorry, you say tournament, I almost anyway.
If that's as long as we can get this to be, in my opinion, voiced and the message is spread, and sort of, now I sound like I'm spreading, some preacher or some sort, but my point, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is like we need to raise the awareness of this, because I think it is an issue. Because I personally, if the game is supposed to be more casual or whatever, like, then fine, change it that way. Like, let's, the extreme of that would be like removing ruples, and now you just press a button and you got a kit. That's fine. If that's what the if that's what the game is, that's fine. Make the game like that. Like, that's fine, But it's like we're in such identity crisis, and it's like, I think it causes a lot of burnout. Like, I'm starting to feel my own personal burnout. It's like the vibe's great at the start, but after that like first month period, it's just like it's just the same.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yep.
It's anyways. Was there something else you wanted to say, Giga or Arx? I'm sorry if I cut someone off. Okay.
Nope, all finished.
Cool, man, dude. So I'll link the Arx blogs plural in the YouTube description and under the description on the audio platform that you'd be listening to if you want to check it out. I highly recommend checking it out. He has some really cool articles, like really cool stuff. Things of with the container that we talked about. He's got stuff on if you want to learn more about the progression system before the flea market was in the game. I think that's a really great read, and also like how it is now, and it's a very objective point of view, and I think it's great. That's one of my favorite articles. He's got an article on recoil system, keys even, and I think you even have like if someone wanted to look further into these container changes and other game mechanics or elements that need to be changed to sort of like help me out, facilitate.
Facilitate.
Yeah, the hardcore change. He has that in there for you. I think you got some stuff about scavs and it's I've checked it out and he's broken down for me. It's all super interesting. If you're into this stuff, you gotta check it out. So
feel free to check out my Reddit posts. There's some stuff on there. And I never take the position that I'm right or that it's good stuff. It's just my ideas and my argument for them. If you don't agree, great. I'd really like feedback. That's not just like elitist gatekeeper stuff. Like if you've got something to say, I love it. Like send it my way. I mean, even that stuff too. I'll laugh at that too. But anyway, yeah. So my Reddit history, my submitted posts. There's some more content there that's not on my blog.
yeah, I'll have his Reddit profile in the descriptions as well. And yeah, guys, feel free to comment, get into the discussions on this. If you're listening on the audio platform, you can go to anchor.fm/ScavTalk and record us a message and send in. Maybe we'll feature in a future video, and maybe we'll have ArxMessor back on at a later date whenever they implement hardcore and we can all celebrate. No,
Yeah, and that's
yeah.
Yeah. And I do appreciate you inviting me, looking me up and inviting me, and that you find any value in what I've contributed is that's pretty much all I can hope for is someone found some value in it. And again, thank you for inviting me and letting me take up one of your podcasts.
Dude, no problem at all. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome. I love talking about this kind of stuff, and it's great when you have like-minded people on who are trying to be look at things from a step back and try to actually have a proper discussion about this kind of thing. It's super good, and thank you, Judge, for setting it up. You've done the groundwork, so props to you, man.
Yeah, I mean it's been. I also just final note. I appreciate you willing to endure me pestering you on our free time and challenging you on your position on things, and it's been great. So yeah, it's been an absolute blast having you on the show, man, and I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to come speak about this pressing issue. So all right, we'll wrap it up there, guys, and we'll catch you guys next week for the next episode.
Nice. And, actually, thanks everybody for listening.
Sorry, correction. There will not be an episode. Oh yeah, there will be an episode next week.
There will be. There will be. But I will be on mobile. I'll be on the road.
Change of plans, but we'll
do something. We'll do something.
Cool. We'll see you guys then.
Cool. All right. Thanks everyone. Cheers. Bye.